through the endless tides of time. They've come to these mythical shores, seeking mastery over death itself. A cruel and beautiful paradise. Where primal forces clash over the island's deepest secrets. Where ancient mysteries awaken. To unleash the power of legends. Where blades and bows unite. Where heroes are forged. And demons are born. This is Aeternum.
Hi everybody, welcome to the New World Aeternum Announcement Development Update. Announcement? Oh, that's right, we announced console. Woo! And not just console, but anyone who has the PC version of the game and purchased Rise of the Angry Earth is going to have access to all of this as well. So I'm here with Dave and Katie, and we're going to bring out the rest of the team in a little bit, and we're going to tell you about all the things coming in this, starting with storytelling. We're going to tell you the story of Aeternum, because it's kind of this crazy, like, lost island. And we're going to tell it through enhanced dialogue system, IGCs, pre-rendered cutscenes. And then we're going to do other things, Dave.
Yeah, we're going to talk about navigating throughout the world, like this third-person, open roaming, mantling, jumping. What's great is it's like an open world you can explore. We're going to talk about the combat. It's action-based combat where, you know, distances, ranges, aiming, all that stuff matters. It's very kinetic feeling combat.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll also talk about the soul trials, which after you've done your solo experience or, you know, group experience if you like, but this is really geared towards the solo player. So once you've solo experienced through max level, you get to do this repeatable endgame content, which is super fun. We're going to dig into that. And then speaking of endgame, there's a big, broad endgame out there. So we're going to dig into the pieces of that. And I'm super excited for that section.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about just, Katie mentioned it's a solo or a multiplayer game, and because of that, you know, we have a lot of effort on performance, making it performant for as many players as can get together or as few, and then a huge effort into just the overall quality of the game. So when you get it, the experience feels good. Now we're going to wrap it up by getting a bunch of the team members together, and we're going to talk about what's coming next. So why don't you just sit back, enjoy the ride, and have some fun.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob, and this is Nathan and Charles, here to talk about storytelling and really what is the world of Aeternum from a narrative perspective. And of course, you know, this is an island, this is the island of legend. It's Eden, it's Shangri-La, it's Atlantis, it's a place, it's a magical, supernatural island that's in the world that's persisted across history. And players quickly learn here that like this is a place where you live forever. No one dies on Aeternum. But there's all kinds of, you know, magic and stuff that players are going to encounter as they come here from the old world. They set sail from the old world at the beginning of the game. And I think that kind of takes us into, you know, who are you?
Right. Yeah.
Tell me.
Who are you, Charles? Yeah. No, who is the player? I think at the very beginning, the player is kind of the adventurer, the explorer, we kind of set it up so you can pick from your archetypes, because players come with different play styles from other games or other MMOs. So we wanted to kind of give the player a little bit of an open slate, but give them buckets to, like, I want to be a healer, I want to be a priest, I want to be a soldier, I want to be an explorer, I'm a ranger. And so there's like kind of a starting off point for the player to latch onto their character, but then you customize your character and make it kind of whatever you want from there. But everybody starts with that, like you're this adventurer on this boat sailing to this mythological, mysterious island, and it's sort of the game goes from there.
Yeah, you're on this expedition to explore this fantastical island, and as you sail in, disaster, catastrophic storm strikes. Like, pretty dramatic moment that we've realized in cinematics, and like it's huge.
What kind of stuff do you expect on this island? What can the player expect to discover or find as they go there?
You're going to meet characters from history, you're going to meet cultures from history, you're going to encounter ancient Romans, ancient Egyptians, you're going to brush up against characters straight out of Arthurian legend, like Sir Galahad. You're going to brush up against characters who are from real world history, like Grace O'Malley, in fact, one of your early friends is a Irish pirate of some renown. And each of these characters really gets a lot of attention. Like, we've really worked hard on making these characters both fun and interesting, and then also realizing the way they show up on Aeternum, the way that whatever they brought to the island, and then the way they've reacted to the reality of this place where no one dies and where mythologies come to life. Those characters are pretty. I feel really good about the way the characters have come out.
So I was going to add, there's also all the supernatural creatures and monsters and things you're going to have to deal with along. You meet these characters, but then they're part of these groups. Like the Corrupted is this horrible, dark, black, demonic stuff that seems to affect characters' minds, and it manifests in a bunch of ways. And then there's the Lost, and they're almost like zombies. They're sort of losing their soul and their sense of self, and they become these sort of husks. Mm-hmm. And then there's Angry Earth, which is like the plant life of the island sort of coming to life and manifesting as creatures that are trying to drive out all these invasive forces that are sort of taking over parts of the island. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of range within that. All these different creatures you're going to sort of have to deal with and build different strategies and different armor and into sort of the nitty-gritty of game mechanics.
And I think we do a really good job, actually, like bringing the player through in our kind of first player experience. I think it's quite really elevated. It's a cinematic experience, really. All these vignettes along the way that we've kept in game as well, and just breadcrumbing the player through the different parts of lore that are going to make more sense as they get past this process. But we did a good job with that.
Mm-hmm. Shifting allies who become enemies, conflicts between the characters, like a lot of these come to life, especially in the ways that we've enhanced the storytelling since this game launched on PC a few years ago, where now we have cinematics, many of them. We have an enhanced dialogue system, like the conversation experience is way more cinematic than it used to be, and those characters come to life like never before.
Yeah, and I think we've done actually quite an impressive job in using multiple mediums, I think, with our cinematics and cutscenes. We've got storybook, illustrative animatics, that I think are quite relatable, especially when we're exploring really old characters that are pulled from old literature. I think that's a really nice way to communicate that. And then we have our in-game cinematics too, that are bridging the narrative elements between our gameplay, and everyone knows what cinematics are. But I think I'm really proud with what we've done. Is we're really from talking to the players from old. You're really going to see a brand new experience here that's really lifted the narrative. I think it's great.
Yeah, from the ship to certainly when you shipwreck onto the island now, you're seeing a whole different, this
a whole new
paradise kind of place at first, or it seems that way.
Yes, I would say it's like a whole new experience. The beginning of the game, I think, brings you into the story. It really sets up all the different factions and characters you're going to deal with. It sets up a lot of the initial mysteries that you're trying to figure out as a player. I think it sort of kicks the game off with a bang.
So much effort's gone into this mission with New World Aeternum in lifting up the narrative systems in the game and the narrative as a whole. And I think we've really kind of reached high and have successfully got there. and you must have some favorite moments.
Yeah, there's almost too many to list, but I think what we've done with some of the character introductions, and like Grace O'Malley pops to mind, like very near the beginning of the game, the players are going to bump into this Irish pirate named Grace O'Malley, and you walk up and she's on the top of her ship shooting left and right and killing corrupted as they come on her, and it's an awesome scene. And it really depicts who Grace is. She's kind of this badass. She's carrying on a conversation with you while it goes on, and that becomes, I think, part of why she's such a great buddy for the player as you go forward from here. And like that's just the tip of the iceberg, though. I mean, there's so many great character moments and characters that you get to meet, and I think we have a lot going on with all that. We're super excited for you to come in and experience the world of Aeternum, meet the characters we've created, experience this game that's radically different than what came out on PC 3 years ago. So come on in, have fun with us.
All right, let's dive into combat navigation next. I'm joined by Maldo and JR. Let's start out with navigation. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to navigate in Aeternum.
Sure, yeah. We actually just rebuilt navigation from the ground up for Aeternum. And that meant redoing all the animations. And the way the game controls is it's very much like other action RPGs that you've played. So you can run around in all directions, regardless of camera. It's not locked behind you. And the game features a lot of verticality, a lot of like ledges and things. So we also have there's like a traversal system. So we have like mantling, we have like vaulting over objects. And that was, just helps with like the smoothness of moving throughout the world.
Nice. And the jump, have we done any work on the jump lately?
Yeah, actually. So again, we also redid the jump, and that was largely because we have lots of jumping puzzles in the game. The world designers like to add lots of verticality, as I mentioned. And so there's lots of climbing, and there's lots of jumping on this narrow ledge sort of gameplay. And so we wanted to improve the jump, give it a little more control in the air to help out there.
And last but not least, what about water? What happens when you hit water?
Yeah, so water, the expectation is that you either swim, or float. You don't sink, right? So in Aeternum, you also float, but you can also swim. So, and that is a new feature that we just added for this new launch.
Awesome. And Dave, I know you've been spending a lot of time on how it feels to play with a controller in your hand. So how's it feeling?
It's great. It's great. It feels very natural, super smooth. It's a bit of a challenge. There's just the sheer number of things that you can do in the game. Just changing your stance, swapping weapons, special abilities, everything all on the fly, target locking, switching targets. But it feels really solid right now, very natural. We've got some good default setups already that people can choose, but anybody who wants to get super specific and noodle around and rebind keys to be, their favorite control setup, they can do that too.
Yeah, I think you've started to hit it. It just feels natural when I'm playing it these days. Like I run around and it does what I expect it to do, which is great. Nice. Well, let's jump into combat a little bit. Tell us what fighting in combat is like in Aeternum.
Yeah, so it's an action RPG, and that extends to the combat. So everything is very action oriented. Everything is based on like positioning and hitboxes and timing. There's no auto attack in the game, so it's every button press is a swing or an ability. And at the core of the combat is your weapon, and your weapon determines your class in Aeternum. And you can have two weapons. So the game basically revolves around, you get your weapon, you apply, you have unlockable abilities. So each weapon has 3 abilities that can be slotted at any time out of 6 possible choices. There's also like passives, and you can choose these as you play, as you attack, as you earn XP, and you can spend that XP to unlock.
Yeah. I love like that sort of feeling of progression you get with your weapons, and like you mentioned, having 2 of them is super fun, right? Like I love like setting up a combo with one weapon, then switching to my damage weapon to sort of get the big execute move. So it's super fun to swap between them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we spend a lot of time on is making sure that all works, that all does what you expect. And that it can support both like, a light level of play and like high level of play for like the most skilled players.
Awesome. Dave, what about combat on your side? Anything that has been adjusted or changed lately that you think is really helping out combat?
Yeah, I think I think the biggest, kind of most noticeable addition lately has been all the hit reaction stuff that we've put in. So we want to be really careful with PvP, because PvP is kind of a big and exciting, optional, but big and exciting part of Aeternum. But you can't have players just being tumbled and knocked over and sliding around, every time they get hit with a great axe or something. But for enemies, doing PvE content, it's absolutely fantastic. You want that weight, you want those meaty thwacks, you want to see them being, hurled into the bushes by what you're doing, whether it's, throwing fireballs at them or swinging a huge hammer around, and that's made the game just feel fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I've played it, and it definitely changes up that solo PvE experience, and it feels great. JR, what about any sort of assists we've added for combat that are worth mentioning?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't mention, but you control the camera with your right stick, which is typical. But our game has a lot of aiming, right? A lot of positional things. So we wanted to help you out with that aiming by giving you target lock. So target lock is an option. You can swap targets with the right stick when you're engaged in target lock. But target lock isn't like a win option. It's like there's like our projectiles still have travel time. So if your target's moving quickly, you might still miss. But we also
targets the chest, right? So you don't get headshots.
That's true. Yeah. So if you want headshots, you need to aim down sights and try to hit the head. But also worth mentioning is aim assist. So that was also something we added to help with aiming out both in and out of target lock.
That's awesome. I think the combat and navigation has really come together. I think the teams really worked hard to get it to feel natural. I know I'm having a blast playing it, and I think you all will too. Let's dig into gathering in our trade skill system. I'm joined by Dan and Patrick. Dan, why don't you kick us off and sort of introduce us into how you get introduced into all this part of our game?
Yeah, absolutely. New World is kind of a game where you do awesome combat and you do questing, but then there's also so many side activities. Right away in the game, you get a skinning knife and you hunt a boar and you cook it at a fire for food. You get another tool called a sickle, and you use that to harvest herbs nearby. The whole world, it's this kind of place where everything there is ripe for the taking, and you use it. And as you cut plants and cook things, your cooking skill goes up, your harvesting skill goes up. It's just kind of addicting all by itself, and you frequently just forget that you're questing, and you spend an hour it's great.
One of my favorite is when you chop down a tree, right? Like I love going into an area and seeing someone have deforested the whole place.
That loud, echoey, it's great.
So Patrick, why don't you give us an overview of our trade skills? Like what types are there? How many are there? Give us an overview here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think when looking at New World Aeternum's trade skills, there's 3 real pillars to look at. First, you have your gathering trade skills, so logging, mining, skinning, things of that nature, where you're going out in the world and you're finding resources and harvesting those resources. What's really cool about that is as you progress through the world, so too does the items that you're gathering. So instead of mining iron early on, later you're finding mithril or calcum, star metal, all these really cool looking nodes in the world to go find. So that's gathering. Once I've gathered a lot of cool resources, I bring them back to town. And when we're in town, we enter the refining part of the trade skill loop. So this is smelting, weaving, other trade skills that let you refine those goods you've gathered into usable goods for the crafting portion, which is the 3rd pillar here. That's the actual crafting part of trade skills. So outfitting, weaponsmithing, engineering, arcana, cooking, there's a number of other ones as well. All of these let me take those refined goods and craft them into really cool, usable items. And in most cases, these items are pretty powerful too. Yeah. So if you're entering gathering and crafting as a early game player, you're making some pretty, I don't know if we can say badass, but pretty badass gear that's going to really carry you throughout those levels and make you much more powerful. So it's super exciting. It's one of my favorite parts of our game.
Yeah, and one of the great things in New World Aeternum is there's a trading post, right? So like when you make this stuff, then you can sell it to other players or players can buy it for you, and it creates this sort of player-driven economy, which is really cool.
Just key to the game too. Like our player-driven economy, I think, is one of the things that really sets us out on the market and makes New World Aeternum just so unique. So you can find your niche in that world as that crafter and make a ton of coin and become a very powerful person on your realm by going about and crafting.
Awesome. Well, those are sort of some of the core trade skill. Any other ones you want to talk about, Dan, and highlight?
Yeah, I mean, the system lets us do other cool stuff that's like we have musical instruments. you get a fishing pole, and like there's all these like beautiful bodies of water, and like the graphics look amazing. So the sun's setting over the water and you're fishing. It's just like, it's wonderful. There's riding, so you get your mount, and the more you ride your mount and the more activities you do with your mount, your riding skill increases, which gives you speed and other power-ups.
And then we're going to be talking a little more about endgame, but this crafting loop also plays into the endgame a little bit, doesn't it, Patrick?
Yeah, crafting is massive with our endgame. We'll talk more about that later, but as an endgame crafter, you're creating some of the most powerful items in our game. Like I said, as you level up and increase your trade skill, it gets more powerful with you. So endgame crafting lets you create the best items in the game to exactly the specification that you want to create. It's a really cool way to tie kind of the broader world into a lot of those endgame activities that we'll cover later.
Yeah, that control you get out of crafting is a big part of it.
Yeah, it's big. And then one of the other pieces there too is the aptitude system. So the end of crafting, level 250, isn't the end of crafting. Now you can keep going and grind even more levels that will just never end. So I can become the most detailed crafter on my server in weaponsmithing and get great rewards out of that as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining in this deep dive onto crafting and gathering. I think, what makes it special for me is like what you were talking about. Like, there's such a density in the world of New World Aeternum. There's always something to do. You can gather this, mine this. It keeps you busy. It's super fun.
It's hard to stay on track.
Yeah,
There's so much stuff to do.
Hey there, New World Aeternum players. I'm here to talk to you about Soul Trials. So you've already heard a little bit about our combat, and Soul Trials are where you get to put some of that combat to work. So what is a Soul Trial exactly? Well, if you like to play solo more by yourself than in any of our team fights, then Soul Trials are going to be really exciting for you. That's your opportunity to fight one-on-one with combatants in New World. And it's also a really good opportunity to showcase some of the Aeternum story. So I'm here with Rob, who's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, what's so cool is, when we first started this, we were only able to do a couple of these, but like now we've got them in almost like all the big moments of the story have these great climactic fights where oftentimes you're facing up against characters you've met somewhere else in the world, and now you're having this showdown with them in this awesome instance, and they've got all these special moves, and there's a lot of challenge in the fight, and it's kind of cool because it's something that I haven't seen done in an MMO before.
Yeah, and it takes you to a lot of different worlds. You get to go into the world of corruption, you get some heartbreaking moments, and a lot of different environments. There's a lot of artistic storytelling too.
For sure. These are kind of like capstone spaces, I think, too, visually, because it's a very controlled space. You're going into this basically like one-on-one arena against whatever the bad is that you're facing. And I think we tried to really make them visually be that capstone as well. Like, we really want to ratchet up that drama so it feels like this climactic moment that you have to deal with in the story, and then you progress on to the open world and do other things. But I think they got a lot of extra attention visually.
And it's super exciting too, now that they are repeatable at endgame. Like, you could play these things as many times as you like, which I think was something that we really wanted, since so much attention was put into making these fights interesting. Like, to be able to replay them and kind of perfect your approach, I guess, strategically.
Yeah. Even back to some of the ones that players may have missed. So if you're just joining us now and you didn't get a chance in some of the earlier seasons, some of the temporary trials are going to be coming back. So whether you're a new or returning player, you're going to get a chance to play all of those unique fights that we have to offer.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the endgame and some of the rewards you'll get from this Soul Trials?
Yes, so Soul Trials are a really good chance to play a solo gameplay. You've got your expeditions and team fights, but you've also got really great gameplay just on your own. And you can still get all of the great loot that you can get in all of the group and team content. You can still get some great loot in the solo content. And as far as endgame goes, we're going to hand that off to the next group to talk about that.
Patrick, why don't you kick us off with what is endgame?
Yeah, so in New World, when you've reached level 65 and completed your main story quest, you enter the part of the game we call endgame. At this point, you're starting to chase higher gear score, go and conquer different challenges, harder content, and that's when the game really starts to open up to like a broad variety of activities.
Yeah, that's what I like about it, because the story is a little bit more linear. You follow a set path, but when you hit endgame, like, the choices are so vast.
Absolutely.
So Dan, why don't you talk a little bit about some of those early choices? So I just entered early endgame. What are some things I might be doing?
Yeah, I would say so. The game kind of starts to open up a little bit just before you hit max. So like you'll get access to Outpost Rush. You'll get access to arenas.
What is Outpost Rush for new players?
Sure, Outpost Rush is so we have a few kind of instanced game modes on offer, both PvE and PvP. Outpost Rush is a PvP 20v20. Kind of like, capture the point in battle game mode. It's pretty cool. Then we have arenas, which that's 3v3 PvP. But like a lot of it's a lot more organic than just the instant stuff, obviously. So like, one of the things that I like to do is like once you kind of get to max level, then you kind of, start focusing on your skills. We have, I don't even know how many trade skills we have. You can max all those out. You can do musical performances and max those out. Fishing, you can go around the world and do elite chest runs. You can do portals.
And what are portals? Because portals are fun if you're new to the game.
Yeah, so portals they're kind of cool because you see them in early game. Like the world just kind of turns red and tries to kill you all of a sudden. Then later, when you're like super powerful, you can come back to these random kind of like throughout the world, the kind of corruption takes over and starts to like invade your reality. And you can like take them on solo. You can try, or you can get a group and go in and farm them out for resources and cool gear.
Yeah, what I like about that is there's something for everyone, right? If you're a total solo player, you got soul trials. If you want to play with big groups, you got things like invasions. If you want to play with a smaller group, you didn't mention much about the expeditions that are dungeon-like experiences.
Yeah, that's another good example of like you start experiencing those through leveling, and then when you get to max level, then like they all become available.
Nice. So let's say I've been playing a little bit now, Patrick, and I'm nearing more of like the mid to late end game. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure thing. So kind of going off that PvP, PvE split. As a PvP player, as Dan already mentioned, you have Outpost Rush, which is a great intro. If you want to take that a step further and really hone in on coordination, you hop into our War mode. This is 50v50, epic siege of a fort, and offers pretty great rewards. Other options for PvP players include the reward track. So all of the PvP you're doing gives you a PvP experience, which leads me to the PvP reward track, which has awesome rewards on it. Great opportunity to get gear up to gear score 700, some unique artifacts. And then on the PvE side of things, we have mutated expeditions. So those, the dungeon-like experience we just talked about. There's harder variants of that, so M1, M2, and M3. With M3 offering the very best gear for those experiences up to gear score 695 to 700. Really great opportunity to coordinate with a small group of people and take on a pretty difficult challenge as those change week to week. Other big opportunity there for the PvE side is the raid. So yeah, introducing New World's first linear raid, so 3 bosses, each boss progressively harder than the last, and they require pretty elaborate teamwork from a group of 10 players to get the highest gear score gear in the game, capping out at gear score 725. So the raid is a super unique experience, and I'm beyond excited for players to hop into that one.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah.
What about on the PvP side? Anything new else that you want to mention?
There is a free-for-all area coming for the PvP experience. So this will be an opportunity to hop into this as a one-off player. It's very different from anything we've built in New World. This experience allows you to go kill other players, loot chests, kill enemies, and get what we call mystic doubloons out of it. Taking those doubloons to a shop lets you buy some of the best gear in the game, and it's a really thrilling experience, gets the heart going, and I'm really excited to see how players like it.
Yeah, I think it's fun whether you want to be a killer and look for people, and also I'm more of like a gatherer. I love going around trying to get all the chests or gather stuff and then run out before someone gets me.
Yeah, and I love to kill the people doing exactly that, so it's super fun.
It kills me a lot. So Dan, I'm a new player. So much fun stuff to do. Is there any way to sort of help me find all this fun stuff?
Absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of these, you can access these from the map as you explore through the leveling experience, but then also from the menu, there's a screen called Activity Finder, which kind of like, it's a one-stop shop for all these activity types, and it gives you access to the matchmaking pool, which, we have a few different varieties of how you can matchmake, including just like a, click, and then it enters the system and finds you a group to play with.
Yeah, and now we have some actual matchmaking in some of the modes, like in arenas, which I think will be big.
Yeah, it definitely is going to help a lot, make sure that the game is like kind of at your right challenge level.
So what if I'm like not into all this power progression and up-leveling my gear? Is there anything for me to do in the endgame, Patrick?
So everyone knows the most important endgame feature is fashion. So there's transmog. There's thousands of appearances in New World that I can go chase. When I get an item, I unlock that appearance in my collection, and then I can transmog that appearance into a wearable piece of armor that I can slot onto any piece of gear I have equipped. So if I really like this cool eye patch I find, I can transmog that and change any helmet I have into that cool eye patch. The other side of things is housing. Housing in New World is pretty robust, and we have a lot of really rare housing items, such as a goldfish bowl, that you can go find throughout the world. And if you find those, they're awesome collector's items. They sell for a ton of coin, and they're pretty prestigious items to find. So go and hunt down that cool fashion, that cool housing items, and it's an awesome solo end game right there.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for joining me to talk about the end game. I really love this part about New World Aeternum. It's where the game opens up. You sort of get to find your own path. What do you like to do? I think there's something for everyone to enjoy here in the end game.
Hey everybody, I'm Scott, and I'm joined today by Dave and Andy, and we're going to talk about the performance and quality improvements in New World Aeternum. So I think we can all agree, like, our game feels the most fun when you're playing with lots and lots of people in the world, and it feels full and populated. What are some of the things we've been working on to give us that feeling when you're playing the game?
Sure. So first thing, we're adding crossplay support to console. It's going to roll out on Xbox and PlayStation. And really what this is going to do is make the worlds feel more alive. You're going to be able to play with your friends on multiple platforms. You're going to be quest with them, play together on everything you would be able to do on PC. So we think, with crossplay being reintroduced with console, it's going to feel like a great experience.
Nice. And so when we have all these Xbox and PlayStation and PC players playing together, we need to make sure that we can put them all in the same world and stuff. So what kind of tech have we added to help with kind of like our population density?
So we've added both tech to get you into the game faster, so that we can eliminate any queues at the beginning of the game to get people in there, as well as tech to allow players to be a lot more dense, so you can have more people in combat at the same time in the same area.
All right, so then the queuing tech that you're talking about, like, it's going to apply no matter how many people are waiting to play. We're going to be able to get them in right away.
Yeah, our goal is to get a large volume of players into the worlds that they choose as fast as possible, so they can enjoy New World Aeternum. And if that world's not available, then we're going to allow you to select the world of your choice so that you can immediately play the game.
That's awesome. And so that's a lot of optimization work we've done and iteration on the combat experience and different kind of like key experiences when like lots of people are in town, lots of people are in combat, things like that, to make it so that we can like show all of that at like good frame rates and like basically we want it to play great and it will. So then on the visual side, what are some of the other big features that players can look forward to?
Sure. So there's been a lot of work that's been done on the game to help just with asset loading and optimization as a whole across the game. And really this all goes towards the benefit of improving performance on console. The engine has gone through an overhaul, and we've added 4K support, HDR support. Really what that means is on your console, when you're playing on your big screen TV, it's going to look great. So a lot of time and effort's gone into just making it feel like a brand new engine when you play on console. Well, it is a brand new engine, essentially.
And PC players are going to be able to take advantage of that as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's all we've got for today. We could dive deeper into the weeds, but we'll save that for future videos. We'll have deeper dives into this and other topics. And, with all these improvements, the game is going to feel great, and we can't wait for y'all to play it. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks everybody. We covered so much, but there's still a lot more to talk about. On top of that, we are just so excited to bring Aeternum to all of you console and PC players around the world. Stay tuned for more information, including updates on closed beta. But other than that, we will see you
in Aeternum!